The hallway lights at Brooklyn Hospital flickered softly, casting long shadows over the polished floor as the cold December wind rattled the windows. Emily Carter, 8 months pregnant and struggling to breathe through contractions that came too fast, clutched the sides of her wheelchair. Her body shook, not just from the pain but from something deeper, something that had been growing inside her for months. Fear. She didn't want to believe it yet. The truth kept scratching at the back of her mind. Her husband Josh wasn't the man she married anymore. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Josh, please hurry." Josh Miller finally appeared at the far end of the hallway. But instead of rushing toward her with concern, he strolled casually, shoulders raised, eyes burning with irritation and something colder. His iPhone was still in his hand, and Emily caught a glimpse of a message on the lit screen. "Don't back out now. End it today." It was from Vanessa. Emily's heart sank. She knew that name all too well. Josh shoved the phone into his pocket when he noticed her staring. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he snapped, grabbing the handles of the wheelchair. "Let's get this over with. Get this over with." The words stabbed deeper than the contraction ripping through her stomach. She winced, reaching for his arm, but he jerked away. "Josh, slow down. I can't." "God, Emily, you're so dramatic," he muttered, pushing her wheelchair harder, faster, as if she were a burden he couldn't wait to toss aside. They turned toward the labor and delivery doors. Emily tried to breathe, tried to steady herself, but the pain was blinding. Her hands slipped. Her weight shifted. The wheelchair tilted. "Josh, stop, slow down." But instead of slowing, he shoved harder. Emily felt the sudden jolt, the world flipping sideways as Josh's foot kicked the back wheel, tipping the entire wheelchair over. She fell. Hard. One hand hit the floor first, then her shoulder, then her stomach twisted violently beneath her. Her scream split the hallway. It echoed off the walls and froze the nurses at their station. Josh stepped back, his face pale, not with guilt, but with panic. "Why did you fall?" "I barely touched it." But the look in his eyes told another story. He had done exactly what he meant to do. A nurse rushed forward, shouting for help. Another nurse hit the emergency call button, and suddenly the hallway filled with footsteps, voices, and chaos. Emily couldn't breathe. Tears blurred her vision. She felt the baby tightening inside her, pressure she knew wasn't normal. Through the blur of pain, she saw Josh backing away, staring at her, like she was an inconvenience, like she was ruining everything. Then his phone buzzed again. A message flashed across the screen. "Is it done? Did she break Vanessa?" Emily felt her heart stop. She managed one word, barely a whisper, "Why?" Josh froze. For the first time, real fear cracked his expression. But before he could answer, Dr. Lucas sprinted toward them, kneeling beside Emily, shouting orders to the nurses to get her into the delivery room immediately. As they lifted her onto a stretcher, Emily fought to stay conscious. She needed to call someone, anyone. Someone who would protect her. Someone who still cared. Her father, General Arthur Carter. With shaking fingers, she reached for her phone in the chaos as the stretcher rolled forward. But before she could dial, she caught sight of Josh, slipping out the side door, answering Vanessa's call with trembling hands. And that's when Emily realized Josh wasn't done hurting her. Something far worse was coming. Emily Carter had always been the kind of woman people felt safe around. Soft-spoken, steady, and gentle in the way that made even strangers relax. She grew up in a modest home in Queens, raised by a retired U.S. Army general who taught her discipline, strength, and most importantly, compassion. Her mother passed away when she was 16. And from that moment on, Emily took care of everyone around her. She became the quiet center of her family, the one who held things together even when life came at her sideways. Working as a nurse at Brooklyn Hospital wasn't glamorous, but it was meaningful. She spent long shifts comforting scared patients, holding hands during difficult diagnoses, and calming newborns who cried their way into the world. People trusted her. They leaned on her, and she carried their burdens with a kindness that felt old-fashioned, almost fragile in today's world. But beneath that gentle exterior lived a woman who had endured far more than anyone realized, especially over the last year. Her pregnancy, meant to be a blessing, had slowly become a private battlefield. Complications appeared: early dizzy spells, swelling, shortness of breath. Her doctor warned her to avoid stress, to rest, to keep her blood pressure steady. And she tried. God knows she tried. But rest was impossible when the man she shared a home with was no longer the man she fell in love with. Josh used to smile with his whole face, used to surprise her with late-night milkshakes from the diner, used to sit with her during prenatal checkups and talk about baby names. Somewhere along the line, all that faded. His work hours stretched later and later. He came home smelling like expensive perfume that wasn't hers. He guarded his phone like it was a vault. His temper sharpened. His affection vanished. And Emily, too, loyal, too hopeful, kept telling herself it was just stress, just pressure, just a difficult season. What she didn't know was that while she rubbed lotion on her swollen ankles at night and whispered prayers for her baby's safety, Josh was sitting in Vanessa Reed's luxury midtown office drinking espresso from a Tiffin blue cup while she whispered poison in his ear. Emily felt the distance, the coldness, the weight of something dark forming, but she didn't know its shape until it became impossible to ignore. Still, even in the moments she was afraid to admit the truth, she kept trying. She kept believing in the good she once saw in him. She kept hoping the man who held her during their wedding dance would come back, that their child would soften him. But on nights when Josh didn't come home, she would sit on the edge of their bed, rubbing her belly, whispering to her unborn son, "It's okay. Mommy's here. You and me, we've got each other." She held herself together with the quiet courage only mothers understand. Emily never wanted to be seen as weak. That's why she kept her father in the dark. General Arthur Carter was a military man to the bone. If he sensed even a hint of danger around his daughter, he would have stormed Josh's apartment job or entire life without hesitation. Emily didn't want conflict. She didn't want her father to see how far her marriage had fallen. She didn't want to disappoint him. But the loneliness cut deeper each day. The swollen feet, the sleepless nights, the fear creeping in as contractions came too early, the dread whenever Josh's phone lit up with Vanessa's name. And now, lying on a hospital stretcher after being thrown from a wheelchair by the man who vowed to love her, Emily finally understood she was alone in a fight she could no longer hide from. She reached for her belly, whispering through tears, "I promise I won't let anyone hurt you again." The stretcher rolled toward the delivery room as alarms beeped and doctors rushed around her. And right before the doors closed, Emily felt something shift deep inside her, a rising storm she couldn't yet name. Something inside her was about to break wide open. Brooklyn Hospital had always been a place of steady rhythm: nurses pushing carts, doctors reviewing charts, families pacing waiting rooms with coffee cups that had gone cold hours ago. But tonight everything felt sharpened, louder, heavier. Winter winds slammed against the glass panels, lining the lobby, carrying the smell of snow and distant traffic from the Manhattan Bridge. The city outside buzzed with its usual chaos, but inside time felt suspended, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Emily had worked in this hospital for years, yet lying in a delivery room as a patient felt like stepping into a different universe. The bright surgical lights glared down from above the monitors, hummed in steady pulses, and the sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air. She could hear the distant beeping of heart monitors from other rooms, the clipped voices of nurses paging doctors, and the muffled sobs of a family praying down the hall. This wasn't the comforting place she knew. Tonight, it felt like a battlefield. Dr. Lucas Bennett moved quickly around her bed, adjusting IV lines and checking her vitals with movements that were calm but urgent. His brow furrowed as he watched her blood pressure climb. "Emily, listen to me," he said, leaning closer. "You're strong, but the baby's coming faster than expected. I need you to breathe slowly, in and out. Emily followed his instructions, gripping the rails beside her, trying to steady the storm inside her. She forced herself to focus on the room, on the details she knew so well, the shelves with neatly labeled supplies, the faint chime of the elevator, arriving outside, the soft glow of the nurse's station light, filtering in through the curtain. Anything to keep from thinking about what Josh had just done. Down the hall, the maternity ward stretched in its usual pattern, family rooms, on the left nurses' workstations, at the center the NICU wing tucked safely beyond closed doors. A Christmas tree stood in the corner of the lounge area, decorated with silver ornaments, its lights blinking gently like a heartbeat. Usually Emily loved it, especially during late-night shifts when the soft glow made the whole floor feel warmer. But tonight, the decorations looked distant, almost mocking, as if reminding her how alone she truly was. A nurse named Harper rushed into the room carrying a warm blanket fresh from the heater. "Emily, sweetheart, we've got you," she whispered, placing it gently over her legs. Emily felt tears prick her eyes at the familiar kindness. Harper had been her coworker for years, someone she shared lunch breaks with, someone who knew how much Emily had prayed for this baby. Harper squeezed her hand. "We're not going to let anything happen to you. I promise." Outside the window, the lights of Lower Manhattan shimmered in the cold night, casting reflections onto the hospital floor. Emily could make out the faint silhouette of the Brooklyn skyline and the distant glow of cars crossing the bridge. Somewhere across that river, Josh and Vanessa were probably whispering into their phones, plotting whatever came next. The thought twisted her stomach. The intercom buzzed overhead. "Code maternity room 4. It was her room. Doctors and nurses moved with focused urgency. Someone adjusted the fetal monitor. Someone else prepared emergency equipment. Every sound in the room intensified: the clink of metal trays, the hiss of oxygen flow, the beep, beep, beep of her rising heart rate. But beneath the noise was something else, an undercurrent of fear that felt like ice spreading through her veins. Emily's gaze drifted to the doorway. The hallway outside was quiet now. Too quiet. Josh should have been there. Instead, the space he should have filled remained empty, like a shadow carved into the floor. And then, just for a moment, she thought she saw a familiar figure at the far end of the hallway. Broad shoulders, steady stance, jaw set with purpose. Her father, General Arthur Carter. But before she could be sure, the door closed again. Something was coming down that hallway, something that would change everything. Josh Miller wasn't always the man people crossed the street to avoid. He used to be charming, annoyingly charming, the kind of guy who could talk his way into a free latte at Starbucks or convince a customer to upgrade their car without realizing how they got there. Working at a Manhattan dealership gave him a taste of wealth he never had growing up. The shiny Mercedes models, the polished floors, the successful clients with Rolex watches and sleek suits, it all fed a hunger inside him. A hunger for more. A hunger he never admitted to Emily. But the truth was simple. Josh hated feeling average. And Emily, with her simple ponytail, hospital scrubs, and quiet kindness, only reminded him of everything he thought he deserved to rise above. That's when Vanessa Reed slid into his life like a spark touching dry gasoline. She first walked into the dealership in a tight black coat, heels clicking like a metronome of confidence. Long dark hair, sharp eyes that looked right through a man, and a voice smooth enough to melt steel. She wasn't there to buy a car. She was there looking for someone she could mold, and Josh fit the shape perfectly. Vanessa worked in a PR office on Fifth Avenue, surrounded by glass walls and people who lived on ambition. She grew up in luxury, dated powerful men, and had a taste for control. When she saw Josh, eager, insecure, craving validation, she recognized an open door. And she stepped through it. At first, Josh believed she genuinely liked him. She whispered things he desperately wanted to hear. "You're meant for bigger things. You're trapped with a woman who's dragging you down. You deserve someone who sees your worth. And Josh, foolish and hungry, ate every word like sugar. But Vanessa had motives she never shared. Hidden beneath her flawless makeup and expensive perfume was a mind calculated enough to destroy lives without blinking. She and her secret boyfriend Tyson had been planning a scheme for months, one that required someone gullible enough to be manipulated, desperate enough to obey, and morally weak enough to betray. Josh was perfect. Vanessa discovered Emily's complication-filled pregnancy by accident when she snooped through Josh's messages. That's when the idea formed a dangerous, twisted idea Tyson would later refine. If Emily suffered a medical emergency, if her husband appeared neglectful or abusive, if legal documents were positioned correctly, they could redirect a significant portion of her life insurance and marital assets. Josh, blinded by jealousy and Vanessa's poison, didn't care about the plan's depth. He just believed Vanessa was helping him escape a suffocating marriage. He never questioned how she always had the right paperwork ready. He never questioned why she pushed him to pressure Emily during her weakest moments. He never questioned why she demanded he finish it today. He only questioned one thing: why he felt sick inside. But he ignored that too. And now, pacing outside the hospital's side entrance, Josh clutched his phone with trembling fingers. Snowflakes clung to his jacket, melting down his collar as Vanessa's voice hissed through the speaker. "What do you mean she didn't fall hard enough?" Vanessa snapped. "Josh, this is the one thing you needed to handle." "I'm trying," he barked back, glancing nervously at the cameras overhead. She screamed. Nurses rushed in. "They're watching me now." "Then act like a grieving husband," Vanessa said coldly. "Go inside. Cry if you have to. But you listen carefully. This has to end tonight." Josh swallowed hard. His breath puffed out in shaky clouds. Somewhere deep inside, a final sliver of guilt clawed at him, begging him to turn around, to walk into that hospital and apologize, to choose his family. But Vanessa's voice tightened around him like a leash. "Do not fail me again." He slipped his phone into his pocket and straightened his jacket. And as he walked back toward the hospital doors, he didn't notice a figure watching him. From the parking lot, shadows, broad-shouldered, jaw-tight eyes, burning like a storm. General Arthur Carter. And he had just heard enough to destroy Josh's entire world. The delivery floor of Brooklyn Hospital had grown unusually tense. Nurses whispered near the stations, doctors exchanged looks that carried more questions than answers, and the cold wind thudded against the windows like a warning no one wanted to hear. Emily lay on the bed in labor room 4, her breath shallow, her fingers trembling as they clutched the edge of the blanket. Pain rippled through her abdomen, sharp enough to blur her vision. But it wasn't the contractions that made her chest feel tight. It was the echo of Josh's voice and the memory of his foot kicking her wheelchair. She tried to focus on breathing slow and steady, but her mind kept sliding back to the hallway floor, the shock of cold tile against her skin, the humiliation of lying there in front of people she'd worked with for years. Humiliation, fear, shame, all of it twisting inside her like a knife. Dr. Lucas stepped beside her, adjusting her monitors. "Emily, stay with me. Your blood pressure is too high." "I'm trying," she whispered, pressing a hand to her forehead. I can't believe he—" "You're safe now," Lucas interrupted firmly. "We won't let him near you." But as he said it, the door to the room swung open. Josh. His hair was damp from the snow, his jaw tight, his eyes darting nervously around the room. He didn't look like a husband checking on his pregnant wife. He looked like a man scanning for witnesses. Lucas stepped forward immediately. "You need to leave. Now." "This is my wife," Josh snapped. "I have every right to be here." "She's in a fragile state," Lucas said, voice calm but cold. "You caused that. Step back." A nurse Harper moved beside Lucas for backup. Josh smirked. "What you all think I pushed her? You're buying her dramatics. She faked the fall." She slipped, Emily felt the breath punch out of her. Faked. He was calling her a liar. Josh looked straight at her eyes, narrowing. Tell them, Emily. Tell them you overreacted like you always do. Harper gasped quietly, glaring at him as if he were something foul stuck to the bottom of her shoe. She's carrying your child. Show some respect. Josh rolled his eyes, but before he could respond, his phone buzzed loudly. He didn't even try to hide it this time. He pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Vanessa, remember what we discussed. End it. Lucas saw the notification. Harper saw it. Even Emily saw it from across the room. The betrayal wasn't private anymore. It was public, exposed, raw. Emily's breath hitched. She tried to sit up, but the pain was too strong. Tears welled in her eyes, not just from physical agony, but from the shame of being humiliated in the one place she once felt safe. Josh noticed their stares and panicked. It's not what it looks like, Vanessa, she's a work friend. Enough, Harper snapped. We're calling security. Josh lunged forward, grabbing the foot of Emily's bed, as if to keep himself relevant, as if refusing to let her escape him. Don't you dare make a scene, he hissed at her. You ruin everything. Always have. Emily's heart shattered. She looked at him, through tears, truly seeing him, for the first time, not the man she loved, but the man he had become. Someone cold. Someone dangerous. Someone willing to sacrifice her to please another woman. Security appeared at the doorway, 2 guards Emily vaguely recognized from night shifts. Their presence made Josh stiffen. Sir, you need to step back, one said. You're distressing the patient. Josh opened his mouth to argue, but at that exact moment, a loud alert blared from Emily's monitor. Her heart rate spiked. The babies dropped. The room exploded into motion. Get him out, Lucas barked. Security grabbed Josh's arms and dragged him back toward the hallway as he shouted, This isn't over, Emily. Do you hear me? You're doing this to yourself? Emily sobbed, gripping her belly as pain crashed through her harder than before. And as Josh's screams echoed down the hallway, something far worse than betrayal settled in the air. Emily realized he wasn't done hurting her. Not even close. Emily's world blurred as the delivery room erupted into frantic motion. Nurses rushed around her, adjusting IVs, switching monitors, calling out numbers that sounded distant and distorted like echoes underwater. The bright overhead lights felt harsher now, slicing through her vision each time she blinked. Her chest tightened. Her breaths came in short, panicked bursts. She felt like she was slipping out of her body, out of reality, out of control. Emily, stay with me, Dr. Lucas urged, his voice firm, but calm as he held her wrist to check her pulse. You're hyperventilating. I need you to focus on my voice. But Emily couldn't focus. Not on him. Not on the beeping machines. Not on the medical team pressing around her. All she could see was Josh being dragged out of the room. All she could hear was his voice accusing her, blaming her, twisting reality like he had done for months. All she could feel was the crushing weight of knowing she had been abandoned in the one moment she needed him most. Her breaths grew shallower. Her vision tunneled. Her tears spilled faster. A deep sob tore through her chest, not from the physical pain of labor, but from the emotional collapse she had tried so hard to hold back. For months, she kept herself together with quiet strength, whispering to her unborn son that everything would be okay. But now, lying beneath the blinding hospital lights, she felt something inside her crumble. Harper leaned close, brushing the damp hair from Emily's forehead. Honey, breathe. You're safe now. No one's gonna let him near you again. But Emily shook her head weakly. He hates me, she whispered. He wanted to hurt me. He wanted... Her voice cracked. Her body shook with sobs. Harper squeezed her hand, refusing to let go. He can't touch you anymore. You hear me? Not anymore. Another nurse, Camille, adjusted the oxygen mask and stroked Emily's arm. "Your baby needs you steady," she whispered softly. "Just breathe for him." For him. The reminder struck Emily like a sudden burst of clarity. For her baby. Not for Josh. Not for the marriage she tried desperately to save. For the tiny heartbeat inside her, fighting to survive. But even as she tried to steady her breathing, another contraction tore through her, sharp, overwhelming, relentless. She gasped, arching slightly off the bed. Lucas quickly repositioned her. "Emily, listen to me. Your body's under too much stress. We need to slow things down. I'm giving you medication to stabilize your pressure. You're not alone, okay? We've got you." But the fear wouldn't let go. It clawed at her ribs. It wrapped around her heart. It pressed against her lungs until she felt she might break. For the first time in her life, Emily Carter, daughter of a decorated U.S. Army general, survivor of heartbreak, gentle nurse, loved by everyone who knew her, felt completely powerless. She whispered, almost delirious, "Why did he do this? Why? Why wasn't I enough?" Harper exchanged a painful look with Lucas. They both knew this wasn't just physical stress. It was emotional trauma hitting her at the worst possible moment. "Sweetheart," Harper murmured, leaning close, "what he did wasn't about your worth. Bad men don't change because good women love them. You gave him more than he deserved." But Emily barely heard her. Her thoughts spiraled wildly. Vanessa's messages, Josh's rage, the fall from the wheelchair, the cold tile against her cheek. She felt like she was drowning inside her own mind. Another contraction, another surge of panic, another wave of tears. Lucas signaled the team. "Prepare to intervene if her pressure spikes again. Keep her stabilized." The room buzzed with movement. Medical hands worked in harmony. But Emily's mind drifted further from them with each passing second. She felt weak. She felt betrayed. She felt lost. And then, just as her eyes fluttered shut, she heard something outside the door. A voice. Deep. Controlled. Dangerous. A voice she knew as well as her own heartbeat. General Arthur Carter. And Emily realized the storm was no longer inside the room. It was about to enter it. The door to the delivery room swung open with a force that cut through the panic-filled air. Even through her haze, Emily felt the shift, the kind of shift that comes when someone powerful steps into a room and the atmosphere bends around them. General Arthur Carter stood at the threshold, snow dusting the shoulders of his dark coat, eyes sharp with a fury so controlled it was far more terrifying than any raised voice. He scanned the room, taking in the frantic nurses, the machines, the oxygen mask covering Emily's trembling mouth. "Where is he?" Arthur's voice was low, steady, and lethal. Lucas stepped toward him. "Sir, she needs calm." "I asked," Arthur said, eyes narrowing. "Where is her husband?" But before anyone could answer, a security guard appeared at the doorframe. "General Carter, we have the man you described held in a consultation room." He was resisting. Arthur didn't react, no relief, no satisfaction. Just a deeper tightening around his jaw. "Good," he said softly. Then he turned to Emily. His expression changed instantly. The steel in his eyes melted into something heartbreakingly gentle as he approached her bedside. He removed his gloves with shaking hands and cupped Emily's cheek, brushing away her tears with the side of his thumb. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." Emily choked on a sob. "Dad, he tried to hurt me. He pushed the wheelchair. Arthur lowered his forehead to hers for a brief moment, grounding her the way he'd done since she was a little girl terrified of thunderstorms. "No one will ever hurt you again," he whispered. But Lucas stepped closer, voice urgent. "General, there's something you need to see." He held out a tablet, hospital records, insurance files, logged authorization changes. Emily blinked, confused, as Lucas pulled up a document with her name. Her life insurance policy. something she hadn't checked in almost 2 years. Lucas zoomed in. Under primary beneficiary, the name was no longer Josh Miller. It was Vanessa Reed. Emily's breath stopped. What is that?" she whispered. Lucas looked at her gently. "Emily, someone filed a beneficiary change on your policy 3 months ago. Electronically, it uses Josh's password, but the receiving account belongs to Vanessa." Harper gasped. A nurse near the door murmured, "Oh my God." Emily's stomach dropped. He changed my insurance for her." Lucas hesitated. "There's more. The system shows multiple failed attempts before the final change was approved. Someone was really trying to make this switch happen." Arthur stood slowly like a volcano rising beneath the earth. "My daughter nearly dies tonight, and you're telling me this wasn't an accident? This was orchestrated?" Lucas nodded grimly. "It appears so." Emily felt like the room was spinning again, only this time it wasn't panic. It was betrayal so deep it numbed her entire soul. Arthur exhaled a long, cold breath. "You said he's being held in a room downstairs." "Yes, sir," the guard replied. Arthur turned to leave, but Emily grabbed his wrist weakly. "Dad, don't do anything that gets you in trouble." He softened instantly, leaning down. "I won't lay a hand on him, but I will make sure the right people hear exactly what he's done." He touched her forehead gently. "You focus on our little warrior. Let me handle the rest." He stepped toward the door, but before crossing the threshold, he paused and turned to Lucas. "Dr. Bennett," he said firmly, "keep her safe. If that man gets anywhere near my daughter again, the Pentagon will know before breakfast." Lucas nodded. "I won't leave her side." As Arthur disappeared into the hallway, Emily clutched the blanket to her chest. A revelation settled into her bones, heavier than any contraction. Josh hadn't just betrayed her heart. He hadn't just abandoned her. He hadn't just tried to hurt her. He and Vanessa had planned something darker, something unforgivable. And now that her father knew, the truth would not stay buried. Not for one more minute. Emily lay there, trembling, the sting of the oxygen mask pressing against her cheeks. But something inside her had shifted. The moment Lucas showed the insurance document, the moment her father's expression turned to pure, controlled wrath, something cracked open inside her chest. For months, she had been drowning in silence, believing she had to endure, believing she had to hold her marriage together, no matter how much it tore her apart. But now she saw the truth clearly, brutally, without the comforting haze of hope. Josh hadn't simply fallen out of love. He had chosen betrayal, chosen cruelty, chosen to align himself with a woman who wanted Emily gone. A new contraction twisted through her abdomen, sharp enough to make her grit her teeth so hard she thought they might crack. Harper rushed to adjust the blankets, but Emily reached for the nurse's hand, surprising both of them. "I'm not going to break," Emily whispered hoarsely. "Not anymore." Harper blinked, stunned by the sudden steel in her voice. "Good," she murmured. "Hold on to that." Lucas checked her vitals again, his voice calm but authoritative. "Your pressure is stabilizing. You're responding to the medication. That's a good sign, Emily." She nodded, forcing herself to breathe evenly. But beneath her exhaustion, something fierce came alive, something she thought she'd lost long ago. Strength. Not the kind that looked like shouting or fighting, but the quiet kind her mother used to talk about. The kind that rises when everything else in you collapses. A nurse opened the curtain slightly. "Dr. Bennett's security's returning. They said General Carter is speaking with the hospital administrator." Emily swallowed. Her father never raised his voice, never threatened, never acted without precision. But when he stepped into battle, real battle, he didn't miss. And tonight Josh wasn't dealing with a disappointed father-in-law. He was dealing with a man who spent 30 years commanding soldiers under fire. Emily closed her eyes, feeling a strange peace settle over her. For the first time, She didn't feel alone. Not truly. Not anymore. The room dimmed as the nurses prepared for another exam. Lucas stood beside her, his voice low and steady. "Emily, I want you to know something. I've seen women give birth under all kinds of circumstances. But I haven't seen someone face what you faced tonight and still find a way to fight." Emily let out a shaky breath. "I didn't fight. Not until now." "Yes," Lucas said gently. "Until now." Another contraction hit, and she squeezed his hand so tightly he winced. But he didn't pull away. "Breathe," he whispered. "You're stronger than you know." Emily inhaled sharply, then exhaled, her gaze fixed on the ceiling. A tear slid down her cheek, but this one wasn't from pain. It was from realization, painful, humiliating, but liberating. She whispered almost to herself, "I'm done letting people hurt me." Harper smiled. "That's it. That's the Emily I know." Emily felt her heartbeat steady, felt her body gather itself for the battle ahead. Not the battle in her marriage. No, that was over. This was a battle for her baby, her future, her dignity. And then, faint at first, but growing louder, came the sound of raised voices down the hallway. One of them belonged to Josh, the frantic, high-pitched tone of a man losing control. Another contraction hit, and Emily gripped the side rails, teeth clenched. But even through the pain, her ears sharpened. She could hear him. "I didn't do anything," she fell. "Vanessa lied to me. She said this wasn't supposed to." A second voice cut him off. The calm, deadly voice of her father. "You tried to break my daughter." Emily's eyes opened wide and focused as she whispered, "Good." Let the truth choke him. Harper and Lucas exchanged a look. Emily wasn't just surviving anymore. She was rising. And Josh had no idea the woman he tried to destroy was about to walk out of this room far stronger than the one he betrayed. The hallway outside Emily's delivery room buzzed with voices, sharp, tense, and growing louder by the second. Even through the haze of pain, Emily recognized the rhythm of confrontation. One voice whined. One threatened. One remained cold and unshakable as granite. Josh, the hospital administrator, and her father. Emily tried to lift her head, but Harper gently eased her back onto the pillows. "Don't strain yourself," she whispered. "This isn't your burden anymore." But Emily couldn't stop listening. "I told you it wasn't my fault," Josh shouted, his voice cracking. She slipped. "I didn't push anything." "You kicked the wheelchair," the administrator said tightly. "The hallway camera shows your foot making deliberate contact. You don't know what angle. Maybe it was. Maybe the wheel was already stuck, or—" "Enough," Arthur said, the words slicing through the noise like a blade. Everything fell silent. Emily could practically feel the tension pressing against the door, thick and suffocating. She imagined her father standing, tall hands clasped behind his back, the way he used to during military briefings, calm, steady, terrifyingly in control. "Joshua Miller, Arthur," continued, voice measured and cold, "you will not shout in this hallway. You will not speak over these medical professionals. You will not lie while my daughter fights for her life inside this room." "I'm her husband," Josh snapped back. "I have rights." "Not after what you did," Arthur replied. A soft gasp followed, maybe a nurse, maybe then a rustle of papers. Arthur again. "I've reviewed the footage. I've heard the testimony. And I've seen the insurance documents you illegally altered." Josh stuttered, and "No, that wasn't Vanessa said, she told me." "So you admit it?" Arthur's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Emily felt chills run through her. Lucas stepped into the doorway just enough to peek out. Emily watched his eyes sharpen, then darken with anger before he closed the door again, his jaw clenched. Inside the room, Harper murmured, "Your father is handling everything. You're safe." But safety wasn't what Emily felt. What she felt, deep, almost vicious, was justice pulsing through the air. Josh's voice rose again, frantic. "I didn't know what she planned. Vanessa told me it was just paperwork. She said Emily wouldn't even notice. She said it would help us. Help you? Arthur echoed. Stealing from a pregnant woman, endangering her, trying to push her during labor. Another silence. He let it hang thick and damning. You disgust me. A choked noise slipped from Josh, fear or anger. Emily couldn't tell. Probably both. Then the administrator said security has already contacted NYPD. They're reviewing the severity of the assault. Assault, Josh barked. Come on, I didn't hit her. I didn't. You committed battery against a pregnant woman in a medical facility, the administrator said flatly. That's a felony. Emily gripped her blanket, tears gathering not from pain, but from the weight of long-awaited truth finally surfacing. Another voice joined the hallway. A security guard. Sir, we need you to come with us. No, Josh shouted. You can't. Emily needs me. I'm her husband. She'll tell you she'll fix this. She always fixes everything. Emily's chest tightened at those words. She closed her eyes. Not anymore. Something inside her had changed. Permanently. Suddenly the door swung open. Not fully, just a crack. Enough for her father to look in. His expression softened instantly. Sweetheart, he whispered. He's being taken downstairs now. Emily nodded faintly, lips trembling. Is he fighting them? Arthur exhaled. He's begging. Emily swallowed, struggling to understand the emotion in her chest. It wasn't joy. It wasn't revenge. It was release. A heavy chain falling away. Arthur stepped closer, hand on the doorframe. This is just the beginning. Justice will follow him long after tonight. Emily breathed shakily, a new contraction building. Lucas rushed to her side, barking orders again. Arthur remained in the doorway, voice steady, strong, unshakable. We're with you now, he said softly. Every step. Emily let out a trembling breath. For the first time in months, she believed him. And somewhere downstairs, Josh realized he had finally lost the one woman who ever truly cared. The moment security dragged Josh away, a heavy quiet settled over the maternity wing. A quiet so unnatural it made the fluorescent lights seem louder, the machines sharper, the air colder. Emily's body trembled with the aftermath of the confrontation. Every muscle felt tight, every breath shaky. She wasn't just giving birth, she was unraveling. And in that unraveling, pieces of her old life were falling away like dust. Lucas adjusted the monitor beside her bed, his face set with a calm she desperately needed. Emily, listen to me. You're entering active labor. You need to let us help you. She nodded, but a wave of dizziness washed over her. Her fingers curled into the sheets. I feel like everything's spinning. That's the adrenaline crash, Lucas said gently. Your body's been under extreme stress. Another contraction slammed into her, harder this time, tearing through her abdomen like fire. She gasped, arching off the bed, gripping the rails with desperate strength. Harper rushed to her side. You're doing amazing. Keep breathing. In, out. But Emily couldn't focus. Every time she tried to breathe, the memory of the wheelchair tipping flashed in her mind. The cold floor. Josh's stare. Vanessa's text. The knowledge now undeniable that the man she married had wanted to break her. Maybe even wanted her gone. Her breaths sharpened, quickened. The monitor beeped faster. Emily Harper's voice cut through the chaos. Look at me. Emily fought to lift her gaze. You are not alone, Harper whispered. You're safe. Your father is here. Your doctor is here. We are all fighting with you. Emily blinked through tears. I'm scared. I know, Harper said, squeezing her hand. But fear doesn't get the last word. Not tonight. Another contraction tore through her. She cried out, tears streaking down her cheeks. Lucas leaned over her. Your baby's heart rate is steady. He's strong. He's fighting with you. Emily felt a surge of determination through the pain. "My son," she whispered. "I have to protect my son." The door opened quietly and her father stepped in again. His presence filled the room, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a gravity that grounded everyone. He approached her bedside slowly, as though she were made of something fragile and sacred. Arthur placed a hand on her shoulder. "Emily, sweetheart, you are the bravest person I've ever seen." A sob escaped her. "Dad, I don't know if I can do this." "Yes, you can," Arthur said softly. "You already are." His voice trembled just once. It was the first time Emily had ever heard it do that. "You survived a man who tried to crush you," he continued. "This," he gestured to the medical chaos, "this is nothing compared to the strength you already showed tonight." Emily felt warmth spread through her chest, a warmth that steadied her breaths, slowed her pulse, softened the fear clawing at her ribs. Lucas straightened. "She's dilating fast. We're moving into the final stage." Emily clenched her jaw as another contraction hit, but this time she didn't fall apart. She held on to her son, onto her father's voice, onto the small flame of hope, flickering back to life. Arthur brushed her hair off her forehead. "When this is over," he murmured, "you will hold the one person who will love you without condition for the rest of your life. You fight for him now, and let me fight the rest." Emily nodded, tears streaming. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." Lucas positioned himself. "Emily, we're going to start pushing soon." The fear didn't vanish, but it no longer controlled her. Something stronger took its place: resolve. She gripped the rails, inhaled deeply, and prepared herself for the next contraction. Because she wasn't just surviving labor. She was rising from the ashes of everything Josh had tried to destroy. And nothing, not betrayal, not pain, not fear, was going to stop her now. The maternity floor had barely settled after Josh's removal when the elevator dinged sharply, slicing through the tension like a blade. Nurses exchanged uneasy glances. Harper stiffened. Even Lucas paused, sensing a shift in the air. The doors slid open with a soft hiss, and out stepped a woman who didn't belong anywhere near a labor wing. Vanessa Reed, tall, polished, wrapped in a long camel coat that probably cost more than Emily's monthly rent. Her heels clicked against the tile with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. She carried a designer bag clutched tightly under one arm, her dark hair glossed to perfection, her lipstick a bold red that felt almost violent in a place meant for new life. She didn't look like a concerned friend. She looked like a storm, a dangerous one. "Where is he?" Vanessa demanded, striding toward the nurse's station. Harper stepped into her path, folding her arms. "Ma'am, this floor is for patients and authorized family only." Vanessa scoffed. "I don't care about your rules. Josh called me." "He's here, isn't he?" Lucas, still inside Emily's room, adjusting instruments, overheard the commotion and stepped out. His eyes hardened the moment he recognized her. "You need to leave." Vanessa blinked at him in exaggerated innocence. "Dr. Bennett. Always so dramatic." "I'm here for support." "Support," Lucas repeated, voice sharp. "For the man who just endangered his pregnant wife." Vanessa lifted her chin. "Emily's fine. She's always making things bigger than they are." Harper's jaw dropped. "She's in active labor because of what he did." Vanessa waved a dismissive hand. "Please. Pregnant women get emotional. It's hormones." Lucas took one step closer. "Walk away." But Vanessa wasn't listening. Not to him, not to anyone. She leaned across the counter, lowering her voice into something venomously sweet. "You don't understand. Josh needs me right now. He was supposed to finalize everything tonight. He promised." Something inside Emily's room snapped. Emily heard everything. Her pulse spiked. Her breathing hitched. The betrayal she'd been trying to process suddenly sharpened into something fierce. Harper rushed to her bedside. "Emily, don't move. Don't react. Stay calm." But how could she, how could any woman lying in a hospital bed fighting for her baby remain calm while hearing her husband's mistress demanding attention outside her door? Emily's hands curled into fists. Her contractions tightened. Her chest burned with grief and humiliation. Lucas turned toward the noise inside the room. He stepped in quickly, voice low. "Keep her stable. Don't let her hear anything else." But it was too late, and Vanessa wasn't done. "Let me see him," she snapped to security, who'd now arrived in response to the tension. "Ma'am, we can't do that," one guard said. "He's being held for questioning." Vanessa laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. Questioning for what, some dramatic fall? Emily always wanted attention. That was the moment Arthur stepped out of the consultation room down the hall. Vanessa froze. Arthur didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He simply walked toward her with the calm stride of a man who has faced real war and found his target. "Miss Reed," he said lightly, though his eyes were frost, "you have about 5 seconds to remove yourself from this floor." Vanessa swallowed, straightening her coat. "General Carter, I didn't know you were—" "You're trespassing," Arthur interrupted. "You've interfered with medical care, and you manipulated my daughter's husband into endangering her life." Vanessa's face drained of color. I didn't." "Security," Arthur said, without breaking eye contact. "Escort her out." Vanessa tried to hold on to her composure. "You can't do that." "I haven't broken any—" Arthur cut her off with a single step forward. "You broke everything." In the room, Emily heard his voice and felt her strength surge again. Because her father wasn't just fighting for justice. He was dismantling every person who tried to destroy her. And as Vanessa was escorted toward the elevator, heels clicking faster now, her mask cracking at the edges, Emily whispered through clenched teeth, "She won't touch my life again." But Vanessa wasn't finished. Not yet. And her next move would be the most dangerous of all. The moment Vanessa was escorted into the elevator, the entire maternity floor exhaled. The tension loosened, the air softened, and the nurses tried to settle back into their rhythm. But peace didn't last long. Not even a minute after the doors closed, Emily's monitor let out a shrill alarm that sent ice down everyone's spine. Lucas rushed to her bedside instantly. "Her blood pressure spiking again," he said, scanning the numbers. "We need to stabilize her now." Emily pressed a shaking hand to her chest. She couldn't get enough air. Her breaths were shallow, uneven, almost desperate. It felt like someone was pressing down on her lungs, forcing the panic deeper instead of letting it out. "Dad," she gasped, reaching blindly into the air. Arthur moved immediately to her side, gently taking her hand. "I'm right here, sweetheart. Just breathe." But breathing felt impossible. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her ears rang. The room tilted. Harper touched Lucas's arm urgently. "Her face is going pale." Lucas nodded sharply. "We're heading toward preeclampsia. This is severe." Emily heard the word through the fog, and her heart thundered. She knew what that meant. She'd seen mothers rushed into emergency C-sections. She'd seen fear in their eyes. She never imagined she would be the one on the table. Another contraction struck deep, violent, overwhelming. Emily arched off the bed, a cry tearing from her throat. Harper pressed a warm cloth to her forehead, murmuring, "Stay with us. Stay with us, honey." Then suddenly Emily clutched her belly, gasping sharply. "Something's wrong," she choked out. "It hurts different. Something's wrong." Lucas leaned in, checking her abdomen, then the fetal monitor. His expression darkened. The baby's heart rate just dropped. Arthur stiffened beside her. "What does that mean?" "It means the baby is in distress," Lucas said. "We need to act fast." Emily shook her head weakly. "No, no, please, my baby." Another sharp dip in the heartbeat. The monitor repeated the alarm loud and frightening. Lucas snapped into full command mode. Prep an emergency C-section now. Nurses burst into motion, wheeling in equipment and opening sterile packages. The room shifted from tense to urgent in 2 seconds flat. Emily felt tears spill down her temples. "Is he okay? Please tell me he's okay." Lucas squeezed her hand, his voice firm but gentle. "We're going to get him out safely. But I need you to stay awake." "Emily, look at me." "Stay awake." Her eyelids fluttered. Her breaths became thin, ragged threads. She felt like she was drifting away on a tide she couldn't fight. Arthur cupped her cheek with both hands, his voice steady but trembling with emotion. "Emily, listen to me. You are stronger than this pain. You hold on for your son. You hear me? You hold on." Emily tried. God knows she tried. But her body betrayed her, shaking, weakening, slipping into the cold pull of exhaustion. A nurse checked her pulse. "She's fading. Get the anesthesiologist in here," Lucas ordered. Just then, as the room buzzed with chaos, the elevator dinged again. Arthur turned his head sharply, eyes narrowing. But it wasn't Vanessa this time. It was a police officer and a hospital investigator moving briskly down the hall. Lucas didn't look up, he couldn't. His focus was entirely on Emily. "We're losing her pressure," he said urgently. "She needs to be in the OR 5 minutes ago." Harper leaned close to Emily's ear. "You're not dying today, sweetheart. Not on our watch." Emily forced her eyes open one last time. Her father's face blurred but remained familiar enough to anchor her. "Dad," she whispered. "Yes," he breathed. "Don't let them hurt him. Don't let them hurt my baby." Arthur choked on his reply. "I swear on my life, no one touches him." Emily's world darkened at the edges as Lucas called for the final prep. Her last conscious thought was a prayer, a desperate plea. Don't let this be the end. Not for us. Not tonight. The moment the medical team prepared to wheel Emily toward the operating room, General Arthur Carter stepped back, not because he wanted to, but because he had to. He had spent his entire life commanding soldiers under fire, but nothing had ever terrified him as much as the sight of his daughter slipping in and out of consciousness. Her skin pale, her breaths shallow, her voice barely a whisper. It hit him in the gut like a blow he hadn't seen coming. The door swung shut behind the gurney, and Arthur stood frozen in the hallway for a long, agonizing second. Then something hardened in him, a shift, a force awakening. A man who had fought wars stepped back into himself. No more waiting, no more watching, no more letting others decide fate. He turned sharply to the hospital administrator and the police officer who had just arrived. "We're moving now. I want every detail of the investigation on my desk before dawn." The officer blinked. "Sir, with respect, this is hospital jurisdiction until—" Arthur's jaw locked. A pregnant woman was assaulted. Her insurance records were illegally altered. And there's evidence of a coordinated attempt to harm her. Jurisdiction is over. This is a felony crime scene. The officer cleared his throat. "We will coordinate with NYPD Major Crimes." "No," Arthur snapped, voice low and cutting. "You will coordinate with me." The administrator lifted her tablet, hands shaking slightly. "General Carter, we have the video footage ready for viewing. The file includes audio." Arthur's brows furrowed. "Audio?" "Yes," she whispered. "The hospital recently upgraded cameras. Hallway units have directional mix." Arthur felt a slow, cold burn rise in his chest. "Show me." They led him down a quiet corridor to a security room. Monitors lined the walls, displaying feeds from every wing. The security guard loaded the footage. There it was. The moment Josh kicked the wheelchair. Slow motion. Clear angle. Clear intent. Arthur gripped the edge of the desk so tightly his knuckles turned white. His breathing slowed, deepened, became the type of controlled fury only a trained soldier could manage. "Play the next feed," he ordered. The guard clicked. Josh, pacing in the hallway moments after phone pressed to his ear. Vanessa's voice came through the speaker, icy, commanding, unmistakable. "You need to end it. Now. She can't make it through the night or the paperwork is useless." Arthur's entire body went still. The administrator whispered, horrified, my God, she was planning to profit off Emily's death. "Keep playing," Arthur said through clenched teeth. Another feed. Josh crying, pleading. "I didn't want to hurt her. You said it was simple. You said she would just fall apart." "Vanessa, then make her fall." The recording ended. Silence. Thick, violent, suffocating. The officer stared at the screen, stunned. "This changes everything." Arthur stepped away from the desk, straightening to his full height. The years of military authority, discipline, and steely command returned to his stance. "Arrest them both." "We already have, Josh," in holding, the officer said. "But the woman." "Vanessa Reed," Arthur finished. "You'll find her nearby. She came here to tamper further." The officer nodded and rushed out. Arthur turned to the administrator. "Secure all footage. Make copies. If anything mysteriously disappears, I'll shut this place down faster than you can breathe." The administrator nodded feverishly. Arthur moved toward the exit of the security room, but paused. He braced a hand against the doorframe, letting the weight of the moment hit him for a heartbeat. His daughter was fighting for her life 2 floors away, but he couldn't be in 2 places at once. He inhaled deeply. "She'll survive," he whispered to himself. "She has to." He stepped into the hallway just as the elevator dinged again. A stretcher rolled out. Not Emily's, Josh's. His face was pale, his hands cuffed, his eyes bleeding terror. Arthur stared at him, not with rage, not with hatred, but with the cold condemnation of a man whose world had been targeted. Josh swallowed hard. "Sir, please, I didn't mean—" Arthur stepped forward until only inches separated them. "You tried to kill my daughter," he said quietly. "Now watch how fast the world destroys you." Josh burst into tears, but Arthur didn't flinch. He walked away because Emily needed him, and justice was already in motion. The moment Arthur stepped out of the security room, the hospital corridor felt different, charged, humming with a kind of quiet electricity. Justice had been set in motion, but one final piece remained out of place. Vanessa. And if Arthur knew one thing about predators, it was that they rarely ran. When cornered, they struck harder. He strode down the hallway with long, firm steps, his coat swaying behind him like a shadow. Nurses moved aside instinctively. No one questioned him. No one dared. A soldier might retire, but command never leaves the bones. Halfway down the hall, he saw Detective Morales approaching a seasoned investigator he recognized from joint task operations years ago. Morales' eyes flickered with surprise. "General Carter, I was told your daughter." "She's in surgery," Arthur said, voice steady. "And her attempted killer is in custody. But the mastermind is still free." Morales nodded grimly. "We already issued a detainer. Vanessa Reed has fled the building." Arthur's jaw tightened. "Then we bring her back." Before Morales could reply, a nurse came running from the elevator. "General Carter, Dr. Bennett wants you upstairs." "It's urgent." Arthur's heart lurched. "My daughter—" "No, about the baby." Arthur didn't ask more. He sprinted for the elevator. When the doors slid open onto the operating wing, Lucas stood waiting, scrubs stained with the urgency of battle. Sweat glistened on his forehead, but his eyes were steady. "General, your grandson is in distress. We're doing everything we can." Arthur pressed a hand against the wall, steadying himself. "And Emily?" "She's hanging on," Lucas answered. "But we're running out of time." Arthur inhaled deeply. "Tell me what you need." Lucas met his eyes. "Strength. We need her conscious as long as possible. Speak to her. Anchor her. If she fades, we may lose both." Arthur nodded once sharply. "Take me in." Lucas led him to the viewing area, a small window where he could see the operating table. Emily lay pale, and still doctors surrounding her. Her chest rose in shallow breaths. Tubes lined her arms. The surgical lights cast harsh shadows across her face. Arthur felt something inside him fracture. His little girl, the child he carried on his shoulders, the teenager he taught to parallel park, the woman who laughed with her whole face, now fighting death because of a man he once allowed into her life. He placed his palm on the glass. "Emily," he whispered softly, knowing she couldn't hear, but hoping she somehow could. "Stay with us. Stay with your boy. We're right here." Lucas returned to the OR, his voice echoing faintly through the intercom. "Her pressure is stabilizing again. Keep going." Arthur closed his eyes and breathed. "That's my girl. Fight." But downstairs chaos erupted. Detective Morales spoke urgently into his radio. "We've got movement on the East Wing exit. Female suspect, matching Vanessa Reed's description." The security chief's voice crackled back. "Stop her before she leaves the property." Arthur didn't hear any of it. His world was the OR window. His daughter. His grandson. The tiny heartbeat fighting beneath the surgical drape. But then, a figure appeared at the far end of the hallway, running, panicked, dragging her coat behind her. Vanessa. She wasn't poised anymore. She wasn't glamorous. Her hair was wild, her lipstick smudged her face, streaked with tears and desperation. She didn't look like a villain. She looked like someone cornered by her own lies. A security guard shouted behind her, "Stop her." Vanessa darted toward the stairwell, heels clacking wildly, but slipped. She crashed against the door, scrambling, breath heaving. For a moment she met Arthur's eyes through the glass wall across the hallway. She froze. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He didn't have to. His expression said everything. "Your game ends tonight." Vanessa's face twisted, rage, fear, defeat all at once. Then she bolted down the stairwell, disappearing from view as officers sprinted after her. Arthur exhaled slowly. He turned back toward the OR window. Because the real fight wasn't with Vanessa. It was behind that glass, where Emily and her unborn son battled for their lives. And Arthur vowed with every breath he had left that nothing, not betrayal, not fear, not fate, would take them away. The hospital's lower wing buzzed with tension as NYPD officers escorted Josh into a small holding room, a stark space with white walls, a metal table, and a single fluorescent light that flickered overhead like a dying heartbeat. His hands were cuffed, his face swollen from crying, his breath shaky. Moments earlier, he'd watched doctors rush past with surgical equipment, listening to the words "emergency, critical baby in distress." And now, sitting alone, the weight of everything crashed over him. This wasn't supposed to happen. Vanessa promised him things would be clean, simple, untraceable. He lowered his head into his hands, fingers trembling. "I didn't mean it," he whispered to himself. "I didn't want her to get hurt. I didn't want." The door swung open. General Arthur Carter stepped inside. Josh froze. No guards followed. No officers. Just Arthur, calm, composed, terrifying in his stillness. He closed the door behind him with a soft click, the kind that sounded final. Josh shot to his feet. "Sir, please, I didn't," she slipped. Arthur didn't speak. He simply looked at him, and that silence was worse than any shouting could ever be. "Please," Josh stammered. "You have to believe me. Vanessa told me, she said it wouldn't really hurt Emily. She said we just needed to." Arthur raised a hand. Josh immediately fell silent. "Sit," Arthur ordered. Josh obeyed, legs trembling so violently the chair rattled beneath him. Arthur stepped closer, leaning both hands on the metal table. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, a softness that held more danger than rage. "You tried to destroy my daughter." Josh's mouth opened, but no words came. "You kicked the wheelchair," Arthur continued. "You pressured her during early labor. You signed fraudulent insurance documents. You let another woman manipulate you into endangering the mother of your child." Josh's breath hitched. I wasn't thinking." That, Arthur said, is the problem. You weren't thinking as a husband, or a father, or even a man. Josh's eyes filled with tears. "I loved her, I swear." Arthur straightened slowly, looking down at him with the cold disappointment of a man seeing the truth clearly for the first time. Love is not hurting someone and calling it an accident. Love is not letting a stranger twist your mind. And love is not abandoning your pregnant wife on a hospital floor. Josh sobbed. "Vanessa lied. She tricked me." Arthur leaned closer, voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "And you let her." Silence hung in the room like smoke. Then the door burst open. Detective Morales entered, gripping a file. "General, you need to see this." Arthur took it. The top page was a printed transcript of Vanessa's intercepted call moments earlier. Vanessa's voice: "Josh was supposed to finish it. If she dies now, everything falls apart." Josh's face drained of blood. No, she didn't. She wouldn't say that. But the truth was right there in black ink. Morales turned to Arthur. "We caught Vanessa on the stairwell. She tried to flee the building. She had a burner phone preloaded with messages about the insurance scam. She's being transported to precinct now." Josh shook his head wildly. "You have to tell them I didn't plan this. I didn't want to kill Emily." Arthur stared at him. "Then why did you stay? Why did you help? Why didn't you protect her?" Josh's voice shrank to a whisper. "Because Vanessa said she loved me." Arthur let the words hang, pathetic, tragic, and unforgivable. Then he stepped back toward the door. Josh panicked. "General, please tell them I'm not a monster." Arthur paused with his hand on the doorknob. He looked over his shoulder. His voice was calm, steady, unshakable. "You're not a monster, Josh. Monsters know what they are. You're worse. You're a coward." Josh broke into sobs. Arthur turned. "The law will handle you now." As he stepped into the hallway, Morales followed, closing the door behind them. Arthur took a deep breath, one heavy enough to crack stone. Now he murmured, "I go back to Emily." And Josh realized the world had just judged him, and it would not be kind. The operating room pulsed with urgency. Bright white light washed over every surface, casting sharp shadows on the surgical drapes. Machines beeped in rapid succession, each sound a reminder that Emily's life was slipping through fingers no one was willing to let go of. Nurses worked in seamless choreography, gloves, snapping instruments, clinking voices steady, despite the storm gathering around them. Emily hovered between consciousness and darkness. She could hear everything, yet nothing felt real. Voices sounded distant, as if underwater. Her chest felt heavy, her limbs numb. Only the pain in her abdomen anchored her to the world. Lucas leaned over her, eyes focused but filled with something deeper: worry. Yes, but also protectiveness. "Emily, stay with us. I need you awake. I need you fighting." A single tear slid from the corner of her eye. "I'm trying." Another contraction ripped through her. She arched off the table, gasping. Her body trembled violently. The beeping intensified. A nurse checked the fetal monitor and swallowed hard. Baby's heart rate dropping again. Lucas steadied his breath. Scalpel. But before he made the incision, he paused and leaned close to Emily's ear. "Listen to me. Your son needs you strong right now. You're the only one who can bring him into this world safely. I know you're scared. I know tonight has shattered you. But hold on a little longer. For him." She felt his hand squeeze hers gently. For a moment his voice became the anchor she desperately needed. Behind the glass wall of the viewing area, Arthur stood frozen, his hand still pressed against the window. He had fought in real battles, heard gunfire, smelled smoke, lost brothers in arms. But watching his daughter fight for breath, that was the worst battlefield he'd ever faced. He whispered through clenched teeth, "Come on, sweetheart. Stay with him. Stay with us." Back inside the OR, Lucas nodded to his team. "We're going in." He made the first incision with the precision of a surgeon, but the urgency of a man holding 2 lives in his hands. Nurses suctioned. Another prepared clamps. The anesthesiologist monitored Emily's vitals closely. Then, a loud dip in the monitor. The baby's heartbeat slowed. Emily gasped, her entire body shaking. "No, no, no, please." Lucas didn't flinch. "We're almost there. Hold on." Her pulse spiked. Her vision blurred. The room felt like it was spinning. The anesthesiologist looked up, her pressures crashing. "Push fluids," Lucas ordered. "Increase oxygen." A nurse hurriedly complied. Lucas worked faster, eyes sharp, breath steady. Almost. Then, a cry. A tiny, strained, desperate cry. Emily's eyes shot open. She saw Lucas lifting a small, red, trembling newborn, her baby, into the air. The room froze as that fragile sound echoed through the OR. "He's here," Lucas breathed. "He's here, Emily." But the elation barely lasted a second. The baby's cry weakened. His chest rose and fell too fast. His tiny fingers curled in distress. "APGAR score low," a nurse reported. "Respiratory issues." Emily panicked. My baby, let me see him." Lucas gently placed the newborn near her face for 1 second, just long enough for Emily to touch his cheek. His skin was warm and soft. She whispered, "A sweetheart, Mommy's here." Then Lucas pulled him back. "NICU. Now." Nurses sprinted, wheeling the baby toward the neonatal unit. Emily reached after him, weakly sobbing. Please, keep him safe." "You did it," Lucas whispered, brushing a tear from her cheek. "He's alive because of you." Her strength crumpled. Her head fell back against the pillow. The monitor steadied, but she couldn't feel her limbs. Exhaustion swallowed her. Lucas touched her wrist. "We'll take care of him. And now we take care of you." Outside the OR window, Arthur sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Relief, terror, hope. All at once, she had survived the impossible. But the fight wasn't over yet. Emily's eyes fluttered closed, and before sleep claimed her, she whispered, "Please bring my baby back to me." And in the quiet glow of the surgical lights, the battle for Emily's new life had only just begun. The NICU was a different world, quiet, dimly lit, and humming with the soft mechanical rhythm of machines keeping tiny lives alive. The moment the nurses rushed Emily's newborn son into the unit, monitors lit up, alarms flickered, and the neonatologist on duty moved swiftly, assessing the fragile infant who had already endured more than most adults ever would. He was so small, so red, so vulnerable. His chest heaved in uneven breaths, each inhale a trembling effort. A tiny oxygen mask was placed over his nose and mouth. Electrodes were attached to his chest. A soft knitted cap one of the NICU volunteers had made was gently placed over his head. The nurse whispered to him as she worked, "You're a strong boy. You've got your mama's courage, don't you?" But he didn't respond. He couldn't. He was fighting. Dr. Laura Chen, the neonatologist, stood over him, her hands steady, her voice crisp. Respiratory distress. Possible inhalation of fluid. Stabilize oxygen. Prepare for CPAP. She glanced at the nurse. "Get Dr. Bennett updated. This little one's a fighter, but we need to move fast." Across the hall behind the glass divider, Arthur watched with fists clenched at his sides. He had seen soldiers fight for life on dusty foreign soil. He had seen men crawl through pain no one should endure. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to this. His grandson, barely minutes old, battling for breath. A young NICU nurse approached him gently. "General Carter, you can come closer. He can't feel your touch yet, but he can feel your presence." Arthur moved forward, every step heavier than the last. When he reached the glass, he placed a hand against it. His eyes softened, softer than anyone in the military had ever seen. "Come on, little man," he whispered. "You've got Carter blood. We don't quit." Inside the NICU, Emily's son let out a thin, broken cry. Not loud, not strong, but a cry nonetheless. A sound of life. It cut through Arthur's chest like a lightning strike. He turned as the elevator pinged behind him. Lucas ran down the hall, still wearing his surgical cap, chest heaving. "How is he?" Dr. Chen didn't look up. "Fragile, but responsive. He's fighting." Lucas exhaled relief and exhaustion mixing on his face. "Emily," Arthur answered quietly. "She's stable. She's in recovery. But she passed out from exhaustion. She doesn't know how bad it was or how hard he's fighting now." Lucas's jaw tightened. "I'll tell her when she wakes up." But Arthur shook his head. "No, she needs to rest. We'll tell her when there's good news." Inside the NICU, the baby's breathing briefly faltered. The monitor beeped sharply. Dr. Chen leaned in. Stay with me, stabilize. CPAP. Increase oxygen flow by 2%. For 2 agonizing seconds, the baby didn't move. Then his chest rose again. Weak, slow, but determined. Arthur's shoulders dropped in a wave of relief so powerful he had to steady himself. Lucas stepped beside him, eyes fixed on the newborn. "He's strong, like her." Arthur nodded slowly. "He's got her heart, her will." A pause, and unfortunately some of his father's scars. Lucas looked at him. "We'll make sure he never has to carry those alone." Arthur studied Lucas carefully for a moment, this doctor who had fought for Emily like she was his own blood. This man who refused to leave her side. A question formed in Arthur's eyes, but he didn't voice it. Not yet. Instead, he said softly, "Thank you." Lucas blinked, caught off guard. "For what?" "For saving my daughter. For saving my grandson." Arthur swallowed. "And for not giving up on her, even when she gave up on herself." Lucas didn't reply. He didn't need to. The answer lived in his silence. Inside the NICU, the baby curled his fingers weakly, a tiny gesture of life, clinging to hope. Arthur's voice broke as he whispered, "She fought for you, little one. Now you fight your way back to her." Then quietly, almost imperceptibly, the baby took a deeper breath. A stronger breath. A promise. He wasn't done fighting. Not yet. And he wouldn't stop until he reached his mother's arms. Josh sat alone in the precinct interrogation room, staring at the metal table as if it might swallow him whole. His cuffed wrists rested limply in front of him. His eyes were red, swollen from tears he tried to hide, though no one was watching. The weight of everything, Emily's fall, the wheelchair, the insurance change, Vanessa's betrayal, crushed down on him like a collapsing building. The door opened. Detective Morales walked in first, a folder tucked under his arm. Another officer followed and stood near the wall. Then, unexpectedly, General Arthur Carter stepped inside behind them. Josh's breath caught. "No, he can't be in here. This isn't allowed." Morales gave him a cold look. "He's here as a victim's representative, and as the closest living relative to the woman you endangered. So yes, he can." Arthur didn't sit. He simply stood across the table, arms behind his back, staring at Josh with a calm that shook him more than shouting ever could. Morales sat and opened the folder. Joshua Miller, we're charging you with multiple offenses. Battery against a pregnant woman, reckless endangerment, insurance fraud, attempted financial exploitation, and conspiracy to commit harm. Josh's voice cracked. Conspiracy, I didn't conspire with anyone, Vanessa. She lied, she tricked me. Morales dropped several printed text message screenshots in front of him. Josh's stomach twisted. There, in black and white, were his own messages. Vanessa, tonight. Do what we planned. Josh, she's weak. It'll look like an accident. Vanessa, good. Keep her stressed. She needs to fall apart. Arthur closed his eyes briefly, the pain sharp deep. Then he opened them again with fury contained behind discipline. Josh shook his head violently. That wasn't me. I was angry. I didn't mean any of it literally. Morales slid forward an audio transcript. Camera mix caught you saying you needed her out of the picture so you and Vanessa could start your life. Josh swallowed hard. I was manipulated. Arthur finally spoke, voice low. No, you were willing. Josh burst into tears. I didn't want her dead. I swear I didn't know what to do. Vanessa made me feel. Wanted, Arthur finished. Valued, powerful. He leaned forward, eyes locked on Josh. And Emily made you feel small, didn't she, because she was good? Because she sacrificed? Because she never stopped loving you, even when you stopped loving yourself? Josh's sobs grew harder. I loved her. I love her. Arthur's voice sharpened. If that's your definition of love, then God help the next woman who crosses your path. Josh hunched over, hiding his face. I messed up. I know. I made mistakes. I just want to see her. I want to apologize. I want to explain. No, Arthur said. Josh looked up, startled. No, he whispered. Emily almost died. My grandson is fighting for his life in the NICU. And you expect to see her. Arthur's tone didn't rise, but every word hit like iron. She will never see you again. Not in a hallway. Not in a courtroom. Not anywhere. Morales stood. Mr. Miller, you will be held without bail until arraignment. Given the evidence, the DA will pursue maximum penalties. Josh panicked. Please, I'll cooperate. I'll testify against Vanessa. Morales exchanged a look with Arthur. She's already talking. And unlike you, she's naming names. Josh's face crumpled. Vanessa had betrayed him again. Morales continued. She claims you initiated the insurance fraud and pressured her to help. What? Josh shrieked. No, she's lying. She can't say that. She did, Morales replied. And she has proof. Josh felt his world cave in. Every lie, every selfish choice, every moment he listened to Vanessa instead of his wife was now dragging him under. Arthur exhaled slowly. Justice isn't revenge, son. It's accountability. Josh dropped his forehead onto the cold table. I didn't mean for this to happen. Arthur turned toward the door. You had every chance to choose her. You chose yourself instead. Morales nodded to the officer. Take him. Josh screamed as they lifted him from the chair. Please tell Emily I'm sorry. Tell her I didn't want. Arthur didn't turn. He walked out as Josh's cries echoed behind him. And for the first time all night, justice finally felt real. Morning sunlight crept through the hospital blinds, creating soft stripes of gold across the recovery room. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and winter air drifting in from the cracked window. Machines beeped steadily at Emily's bedside, gentler, now calmer, no longer screaming alarms of danger. She lay asleep, face pale but peaceful, her breathing slow and steady. For the first time in hours, she wasn't fighting. She was resting, healing. When her eyes fluttered open, it took her a moment to remember where she was. The ceiling, the bedding, the IV in her arm. Her body felt heavy, weak, as if her bones had been replaced with sand. But then, like lightning, her memory snapped back. The wheelchair, the fall, the operating room, her baby's cry. Her baby. She gasped, trying to sit up, but pain surged through her abdomen. A gentle hand pressed her shoulder. "Easy," Lucas murmured. "Don't strain yourself." Emily blinked. Lucas stood beside the bed, still in light blue scrubs, exhaustion etched across his face. But he was smiling, a soft, relieved smile that made her chest tighten. Where is my son?" she breathed. "He's in the NICU," Lucas said gently. "He's stable. He's improving. He fought hard, just like his mother." Emily's eyes welled with tears. "Can I see him, please? I need to." "You will," Lucas promised. "But you need a few minutes to wake up." Her hands trembled as she reached for the blanket. "Is he okay? Is he breathing on his own, did he?" "Yes," Lucas said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "His breathing is better. His heart rate is stronger. He's small, but he's fierce." Emily covered her mouth, sobbing softly. Relief crashed over her like a wave. Then another voice entered the room, deep, familiar, warm. "That little boy has the heart of a soldier." Emily looked up sharply. Her father stood at the doorway, eyes tired but filled with pride. His coat was dusted with dried snow. His hair looked like he'd run his hands through it 1,000 times. But his expression, the mixture of awe, relief, and love, made Emily cry harder. "Dad?" she whispered. Arthur crossed the room in 3 strides and gathered her into his arms, carefully mindful of her stitches and sore muscles. Emily buried her face into his shoulder and let herself be small again, just for a moment. "You scared me," Arthur whispered, voice cracking. "Scared me worse than any battlefield ever did." She held him tighter. I'm okay now." Arthur pulled back, cupping her cheek. "You're more than okay. You're the strongest woman I've ever known." Emily wiped her tears. "Is he really okay, my baby?" Arthur nodded, his eyes softening. "He's fighting, and he's winning." A nurse slipped into the room quietly. "Mrs. Carter, once you're ready, we can wheel you to the NICU. He's awake. He's responding to voices." Emily's breath hitched. "Voices?" Was he crying? The nurse smiled gently. Actually, he calmed down when he heard his grandfather talking outside the window. Emily let out a half laugh, half sob. "He knows him already." Lucas stood. "Let me check your vitals one more time. Then we'll go." While he worked, Arthur remained by her side. "I have something else to tell you," he said softly. Emily looked at him nervously. "What is it?" "Josh is in custody," Arthur said. "And Vanessa, she's been arrested too. They won't harm you again." "Not ever." Emily's breath shook as she exhaled. "I don't want to think about them anymore." "You won't have to," Arthur said firmly. Lucas finished with the monitor. "Vitals look good. Let's take her to her son." The nurse brought a wheelchair gently beside the bed. Emily carefully shifted into it, wincing, but determined. Arthur placed his hands on her shoulders as the nurse began to wheel her toward the NICU. Emily wiped her tears. Every hallway felt brighter. Every step felt like she was being reborn. Every breath tasted like freedom. She wasn't the same woman who entered this hospital. She wasn't broken. She wasn't small. She wasn't alone. She was a mother, a survivor, a woman rising. As the NICU doors opened and she saw her tiny son in the incubator, Emily whispered, "I'm here, baby. Mommy's here." And for the first time since the nightmare began, hope filled the room. The NICU hummed softly, filled with the steady rhythm of incubators and the gentle footsteps of nurses who moved like guardians in a sacred place. Emily sat in a cushioned rocking chair beside her son's incubator, wrapped in a warm hospital blanket. She looked stronger than she had in days, pale but steady, fragile but determined, bruised yet unbroken. Her tiny son, now breathing more easily, lay with his little chest rising and falling beneath the soft glow of the incubator lights. His fingers twitched, his lips puckered. Every movement made Emily's heart expand with a fierce, protective love she had never understood until now. A nurse approached with a smile. "Miss Carter, he's doing so well today. I think it's time." Emily's breath caught. Time for what? The nurse gently opened the incubator. "Time for you to hold him." For a moment, the world stopped. Emily's trembling hands reached forward, and the nurse guided her, placing the tiny newborn against her chest. The warmth of him, small, delicate, unbelievably precious, melted every lingering shadow in her heart. He fit perfectly in her arms, like he had been waiting for this moment as much as she had. Emily exhaled a shuddering breath. "His sweetheart, Mommy's here." The baby stirred, let out a soft sigh, then nestled into her like he recognized her heartbeat. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Arthur stood in the doorway, arms crossed, blinking rapidly as he tried and failed to hide his emotion. His voice cracked as he whispered, "That's my grandson." Emily laughed softly through her tears. "Do you want to hold him, Dad?" Arthur hesitated, the great general suddenly shy. "Only if you're ready." Emily nodded and gently passed the baby into his arms. Arthur held the newborn with a tenderness no one else had ever seen, his large hands steady, his expression melting. He whispered, "Welcome to the world, little warrior." Lucas entered quietly, stopping just inside the room. He watched the scene unfold, the proud grandfather, the recovering mother, the healing child with a warmth in his chest he tried to hide. But Emily saw it. She looked up at him, meeting his gaze with gratitude deeper than words. "You saved us," she said softly. Lucas stepped closer. "No, you saved yourself. I just helped push the storm away." Emily smiled, small but sincere. "Still, thank you." Arthur handed the baby back to her. Lucas cleared his throat, shifting awkwardly. "I also came to update you. Josh and Vanessa won't be bothering you again. The DA is moving forward with full charges. And with the evidence on record, the case is airtight." A sense of closure washed over Emily, not vengeance, but peace. A door closing, so another could open. "Good," she whispered. "I don't want their shadows touching his life." Lucas nodded. "They won't. For a few moments they just watched the baby breathe, slow, peaceful, steady. Arthur finally spoke again. "So do we get to know his name now?" Emily looked down at her son, brushing a fingertip over his tiny cheek. "Yeah," she whispered. "I think I'm ready." Lucas stepped closer, curious. Arthur leaned in. Emily smiled. "His name is Benjamin. Benjamin Carter." Arthur's breath caught. "After your mother's father." Emily nodded. "He always told me strength isn't loud. It's steady. I want Benjamin to grow up knowing that." Lucas swallowed emotion, tightening his throat. "It suits him." Arthur chuckled. "Better than naming him after me." Emily grinned. "Dad, you already scare half the hospital. One General Carter is enough." They all laughed. Soft, relieved, full of the kind of hope that only comes after surviving something dark. Lucas hesitated, then gently touched Emily's shoulder. "When you're stronger, maybe I can take you both out for a walk. Central Park. Spring will be here soon." Emily looked up at him, really looked. His tired eyes, his gentle smile, the quiet way he cared. "I'd like that," she whispered. Arthur raised an eyebrow but said nothing. A small, approving smile tugged at his lips. Emily held Benjamin closer, inhaling his newborn scent, feeling his heartbeat against hers. Her old life was gone. Her pain was real. But her future, bright, warm, and unfolding, was beginning now. I promise," she whispered to her son, "your life will be filled with love. The real kind." Arthur placed a hand on her shoulder. Lucas stood beside her. Benjamin breathed softly in her arms. And for the first time in a long time, Emily knew deep in her bones that everything was going to be okay. So that's it. Our story has come to an end. But you're still here, aren't you? My dear friend, if you're listening to these last words, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a quiet, honest way. And maybe that's the real message: we survive what we think will break us. We rise from moments we never imagined we could endure. Just like Emily, who walked through pain, betrayal, and fear, only to find strength waiting on the other side. The Stoic Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle is the way." Tonight, we saw exactly that. The very things meant to destroy her became the doorway to a new life. And perhaps you watching this have your own storms, your own betrayals, your own nights where everything feels heavy. Remember this: you are not defined by who hurt you. You are defined by who you become after the hurt. If this story gave you hope or even just a moment of comfort, do me a small favor: hit the like button so we know you're walking this road with us. Share this video so someone else might find the strength they forgot they had. And subscribe to the channel, because here you're not just a viewer. You're part of a family that grows, heals, and rises together. You're still here, and that means something beautiful is awakening inside you.